are in the edible forest garden at McDonald Farm. Today is July 20th, 2020. Look at this nettle patch. You can barely see the sign. This nettle patch is taller than I am. They look amazing, so I think I'm going to harvest some of those today. We'll take some of those nice, beautiful tips up here, harvest a little bit from the tops. Looking over this direction, I see a lot of Monarda. I see both types. The pale purple color is fistulosa, and then the darker pink, I'm trying to see if I can zoom here, the darker pink one there is didyma. Those are two different varieties. Some beautiful Monarda. We've got black-eyed Susans over there. So let's get in a little closer here. This is our new area this year with some asparagus, a wonderful perennial vegetable. These are young asparagus plants, these ferny, beautiful plants right here. Those are doing very well. Those will be really nice. Typically when you plant new asparagus, you should get a really good crop by the third year. So each year you'll start getting a few mature plants. You can see how little they start off and then they'll get much bigger. See a couple weeds. There's pokeweed in there, this guy right there. And there's bindweed climbing up the chicken wire, which is a very difficult weed to eradicate. What do we have over this way? We've got some beautiful hollyhocks. We've got some pollinators flying around. You can hear cicadas in the background. Hollyhocks are beautiful. This tree is going to come out. It had, I believe Dennis said it had a borer, so that poor guy didn't survive, so that will be removed. We'll get a new tree in. Over this way, the tansy is big and beautiful. This is a great plant for keeping some insect pests away. See over here, nice view of the flowers by the bridge. Looks beautiful. You can see on the leaves of this, I should point this out, the leaves of the hollyhock here are just being completely destroyed by Japanese beetles. At home, I had some smartweed growing in my yard near my hollyhocks, and it was actually amazing. I was really glad I had that because it acted as a trap crop, and all the Japanese beetles loved the smartweed, and then they left my hollyhocks and my raspberries and other things alone, and typically those are plants that they would be attacking, so that was really beneficial for me. We have some beautiful coneflower over here, echinacea. Ooh, bumblebee, hello. Buzzing around. Here's our sign. This was sponsored by Whole Foods Market, our edible forest garden. You can see the sign between all the beautiful flowers there. Over here we have our roses. Rosa rugosa gives us some big, beautiful rose hips. It's flowering right now though. Really pretty. Looks like over here we've got quite a bit of comfrey, a chop and drop, and there's some feverfew. Of good things. We'll take a look. We'll go through, walk actually in the garden. Right now I'm just standing along the edge and kind of looking at what we can see from the outside, but we'll take a walk and go through the garden too. So now I'm up at the top part of the garden. Take a look at what's over here. We've got some more roses. They look really pretty. This is our pear tree. Some nice pears growing in here. Let's see if we can take a look at those. Asian pears. And over this way, oh, I see Queen Anne's lace, our grapevines. Let's take a look. These grapes are just growing like gangbusters here. So those look gorgeous. This vine is covered. Let's see so many grapes in here. So this will be really fun once they're ripening, as long as we can get some before the birds and animals get them. There are plenty here, so hopefully we'll get to eat lots and lots and share lots and lots. Look at this. This is beautiful. Just grapes everywhere. It's so cool. So we'll come into the garden and let's see, more hollyhocks. Everything is looking really nice. Sage, I showed that before, that had been chewed on by the bunnies over the winter, and I said it's totally fine. It just helped us prune it and they didn't destroy it. So here's the sage coming back. Oh, hello. A little bee just went right into the hollyhock flower. Let's see if we can, hello. Just swaying in the breeze. some berries forming on the bushes. Or the last time I was recording, they were just starting to form and it was finishing flowering. Now we're actually getting some berries. This is a high bush cranberry, which is not actually a cranberry, it's a viburnum. And the berries, though, can be used very similarly to cranberries. You can make cranberry sauce, all kinds of good stuff with those. And ooh, I'd stop and smell the lemon balm. It smells so good. I love that smell. Definitely more comfy and whew, lots and lots. So this is flopping over. There's plenty of material here that we can use to chop and drop. I just spotted some gooseberries that are ripening. Look at that. Yummy. Gooseberries are delicious. Last time I was here a couple weeks ago, we had a lot of currants to harvest, and the gooseberries were not ready yet. So now it looks like the currants are probably done, and the gooseberries, though, are coming in. So let's see, this is our elderberry, which during class and a few weeks ago was just covered in flowers, and now you can see that the flowers have faded, but we have berries, lots and lots of elderberries. So if I get in closer here, you can actually see the berries forming there. They're green. We don't want to eat them when they're green. They're not ripe yet. They need to get to a deep purplish black color. So they're not anywhere near ready, but they're getting there. So got lots of berries. That's a good sign. And let's see, in our rain garden area, well, let's see, actually, before we go that way, we'll go this way. We've got some mountain mint and more, isn't that pretty? The whitish color there, the tips. We have two different types of mountain mint in this garden. Let's see, what else we have? Rhubarb. Here's still more rhubarb. And we did make a little video about harvesting rhubarb and how you want to go about that. So basically, oh goodness, a rabbit just ran about 2 feet away from me. I wish I had my camera looking over here to the left. It just went right here down this path right next to me really, really fast. I wish I would have gotten that on camera for you. Anyway, so to harvest rhubarb, you want to go way down to the base and you twist and pull so that it comes out really right out of the soil. And I'm not going to harvest any from here. Typically we want to harvest the large stalks on the outer edges and leave the center of the plant to keep growing and producing more harvests for us. But it looks beautiful. We've got one leaf there that's a little, doesn't look so great, but the rest of it, the plant is looking really good and will give us many more harvests for many years. But harvesting just part of the plant is recommended so that you don't ever want to just clear cut something like that and damage the plant. We want it to come back for us every year and continue to live and provide us with more harvests. And continue over this way. Here is our, we've got the hardy kiwi vines, and then we have hops, and you can see the cones developing on the hops vines. You can also see the holy leaves. Something's been chewing them, so I'm not sure, probably Japanese beetles. I don't see them on the plants now, but we've got a wasp doing some hunting there. I like to see wasps in the garden because they tend to eat other pests in the garden, so they're pretty helpful. And over this way, this is elecampane that's blooming. It looks beautiful. This is used a lot in herbal medicines. I actually bought an herbal tea last year from this herbal apothecary type place, and it was for allergies, and elecampane was one of the ingredients. So that's one that I'm learning more about, and I'm taking Ellen's bioregional herbalism class this year. She's a very good resource and very knowledgeable, so I'll learn a little bit more about that plant. It's absolutely beautiful, elecampane. And as I was walking through here, I think I must have disturbed maybe, I don't know, a nest of bunnies or something, because I had another one just run by me just a second ago. So here's our big pawpaw tree, and I was super excited. I don't want to make you guys dizzy and turn this around, but I want to show you this. Dennis planted another pawpaw tree. You definitely need 2 pawpaw trees in order to get fruit. So I was very excited to see the second pawpaw tree. So Dennis brought that and planted it for us, which is fantastic. Over here in the rain garden area, we have mallow. This is a marshmallow, which is if you put those words together, you get marshmallow. And that is the plant that flavored, so the original marshmallows, the dessert, that was made from marshmallow root. And that likes, as you can tell by the name, it's got the word marsh in it. It likes the wet conditions, so we have it growing in our rain garden area. This over here, the beautiful red flowers, that is lobelia. It's also called cardinal flower, so you may be familiar with that. It's a beautiful flower. It's a favorite of a lot of people. And going back this way, you can see lots of beautiful flowers over here. It's such a pretty time in the garden with everything blooming. Again, more monarda, both didyma and fistulosa. We've got coneflowers. We've got brown-eyed Susans over in that way. We've got Queen Anne's lace. We've got the marshmallow. We've got the lobelia. We've just got flowers everywhere, and it's gorgeous. Our willow structure looks like a really nice shady space in there right now, but it's getting quite overgrown on the top. It needs to be tamed a little bit, so we'll take these straggly pieces that are waving in the wind and kind of angle them over the structure and tie them down a little bit, just direct them, you know, to where we want them to grow. I'm seeing all kinds of pollinators buzzing around in here. This is just beautiful. Great time to be in the garden. Let's step over our little bridge here on our trail. There's some elecampane to greet us on the other side of the little bridge. Come on through. There's more mallow. Get you a little bit closer up to the elderberries that are forming. They look beautiful. We have a lot of goldenrod here, which is great for those monarch butterflies. Once they, you know, they need the milkweed for the caterpillars, but then they need the nectar from flowers once they are butterflies. So that's an important nectar plant for them. And we have catmint, peach tree, comfrey, blackberry canes. You can see these are really kind of all over the place over here. We need to get these trellised up. So we've got the trellis wires here. So we just need to take these fresh new canes that have grown and put them up. They need a bit of support. You can see there are berries forming. Those are nowhere near ripe yet, but some are a little farther along over here. So that's exciting. Soon we'll have blackberries. We have yarrow blooming. Look how pretty that yarrow is. I love how those ferny leaves look. It's so nice. There's a random dill plant, which is great. This is dill right here. And that is a really good habitat for swallowtails. They like, it's a good food source, and you'll see little swallowtail caterpillars crawling around on those, on the dill plant. It's nice to have annuals mixed in with your perennials. It's that integrate rather than segregate principle. And more berries over here, more yarrow, more sage. This is just beautiful. So right here, right over this other little bridge coming into the garden, we have this big burdock plant. So I just wanted to point that out. That's one thing that people a lot of times try to eradicate as a weed, but if you have space to allow a couple of them to grow, it is a good food and medicinal plant, food plant and medicine. We don't eat the leaves, but you can eat the petiole of the leaf, which is like this part right here, like a stalk or the stem, and the roots. And they've got a lot of good qualities. Again, lots of comfrey. So we'll definitely be able to come in and do another round of chop and drop because it's growing plentifully. I mentioned milkweed being good for the monarchs. Milkweed is the only plant that the monarchs will lay their eggs on, and it's the only plant that the caterpillars eat. So that's a very important thing to include in the garden. So I just wanted to show you what that looks like. I've got several milkweed plants here. There is a milkweed bug on there. That's no problem. Got some flowers, and I should look for some eggs. There's another spot where the garden just looks absolutely beautiful. Coming through we've got the arbor there to walk in and welcome us. And over here, this is the back of the structure. It's got more grapevines growing on it with the bench inside with a beautiful view looking up toward the rest of the garden. But I noticed we got a new birdhouse down there, so that's really cool. I'm excited about that. That will help with keeping some of the pests at bay. It's really good to be able to attract bluebirds and wrens specifically because they eat insects and help with our pest management. Ooh, I don't know if I can catch this. I'm trying to see, we've got a hummingbird moth in the Monarda. Oh, I'm so excited to see that. I'm glad I was able to catch that for you guys. If you've never seen one before, that's really cool. It's a hummingbird moth. We also have a bumblebee visiting our flowers. So now I'm standing at the bottom area of the garden. Wanted to get a little closer and check out our new birdhouse. I'm excited about that. That's very cool. And of course, just these flowers are gorgeous. I know I keep saying it, but this is just such a beautiful time to be in the garden. Look at this. I mean, it's just everywhere. The blooms, the fruit, everything is growing abundantly and beautifully. Let's check out the herb spiral and see what we've got going on in here today. I see a lot more dill and borage. Lots of pretty blue flowers. And this is the other mountain mint. I mentioned we have two different kinds that are both referred to with the same common name, mountain mint. So this is the other one. And more borage, and it looks like the oregano is flowering. That's okay. It's really better to harvest it before it goes to flower, but look how pretty that is, and the pollinators love it. There's milkweed over here, coneflower, and let's see what else we have growing in here. The color on those coneflowers is gorgeous. This is that pale Indian plantain that we were looking at before. Look how tall it's gotten, and it's getting ready to flower. We have hyssop, an anise hyssop growing over here. If you've never tried that, if you know what anise or like an anisette or that type of flavor tastes like a black licorice, that's what that tastes like. Oh, look at this. There's a little bee over here. There's a pink flower on the borage. They're usually blue, but sometimes you get other colors. They're pink in here. And of course, the bees love this area. It's a great area for them. We had some, yeah, there's some mint right in there. And this is a weed, depending on how you look at it. This is also, you could call it a wild amaranth. So whether it's a weed or not, I'll leave that up to you. A lot of people would pull it, but you may want to save it. You want to leave it in here and let it grow. You might want to eat it. The leaves are edible and it will produce seeds. Not quite enough probably from one plant to really get a good harvest out of it, but I think it's a good plant. And speaking of edible weeds, we have lamb's quarters. That's one of my favorites right there. Those are delicious. And it looks like some mint has escaped its boundaries, as it tends to do. So that's fine. Usually when they escape into areas we don't want them, we dig them up and we give them to people. We spread the love, spread the wealth. That's the beauty of all of this abundance. We have plenty to share. So let's check out the next area. This is our false blue indigo. This is a nitrogen fixer, and you can see, so it's a member of the bean and pea families, the Fabaceae, and this is what the pods look like, the seed pods look like when they are young. They have this green color. It doesn't really make like a pea like we would eat, but it looks kind of like a pea pod, like a sugar snap pea, a really big plump pea pod. Inside though, the seeds are tiny. And so as the seed heads mature, they turn dark. These had beautiful flowers earlier, and now these, you know, those turn to the seed pods. Seed pods now are turning dark and maturing, and they will dry. And when they do, the seeds will loosen up inside, and when you shake them like that, it's like a rattle. So those are fun for kids. You'll hear the seeds shaking around in those little pods, so that's really cool. That's a fun plant. Here's this little peach tree. I wanted to check on it because we had a nice peach growing on there. It's still a young tree. We don't want it loaded in fruit. We want it to get a good root system and get established and be a good, strong, healthy tree so that as it grows and matures, it can give us a lot more. But that one peach is looking pretty nice, so that's good to have there. It's always fun to see. This is a cool plant right here that I wanted to show you. This is called mullein. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That's so pretty. And so this, I know you can't tell from the video probably, but these are very fuzzy leaves. And a lot of times when it's young, it can be confused with other plants. People feel the fuzzy leaves and think maybe it's lamb's ear. But it's not, it's a different plant. It's got these pretty yellow flowers up the top on this tall stalk. And this has a lot of medicinal uses also. And this whole area of the garden over here, just gorgeous. Over here we have more lemon balm and more bindweed in here, of course. Get that out of there. You can see these delicate little flowers on here. Typically though, it's better to harvest before it's flowering. The flavor changes somewhat when the plant is putting its energy into making flowers and reproducing and making seed, and so it's better to typically to harvest your lemon balm before it gets to the stage where it's flowering, but I still think it's okay. We've got more of that pokeweed in here popping up, and we have a rose of Sharon. It's got some buds. It'll be blooming soon. We have others in other areas of the gardens that are blooming now. We have, these are Egyptian walking onions, and so I'll show you right now. They're all laying down on the ground. They're being lazy. They're flopped over. No, they're not being lazy. Actually, they're doing what they're supposed to do. If you look right here, that head with all these extra little onion plants growing off of it, what these do is when it develops these bulbs at the end of their tall stalk, they get heavy and they flop over and they lay down to the ground and replant themselves. So that's why they're called walking onions. They start off over here and then they replant themselves over here, and then the next year maybe over there or over there, and they just keep moving around. And so you can actually harvest some from here and eat this whole stalk and then leave this part that's growing the new plants in the ground to grow for next year. You certainly don't have to harvest that much, but you could potentially harvest some and not have to replant it because it's already replanting itself. So those are wonderful to have. Great permaculture plants. We're reducing our workload and letting the system kind of manage itself. This is St. John's wort. This is beautiful. And we have bees all over it. They are loving these flowers. More Queen Anne's lace behind. Oh, let's see. More coneflower, comfrey. This is, well, it says do not climb because we've got rocks holding up this raised area. It's a keyhole bed, which you can probably see better if I'm standing on the other side of it, but from here at least you can kind of see it comes around this way. It's in a horseshoe shape, and in the center, that column right there, we toss our compost into there and it can compost right in place and make the nutrients available to the plants growing around it. And what we've got planted in here this year is a Three Sisters Guild, or Three Sisters Garden, which is a Native American method of gardening. And we learn a lot from those indigenous practices because it's good to learn from people who care for the land and respect it and know it better than anyone, and learn what we can. And so this is one thing that we have learned. This is about how plants work together. So this corn is the center basically of your Three Sisters garden. Just to give you a very brief explanation if you haven't heard of it before, there's a corn stalk growing on there. So the corn stands tall and it provides support for beans. If you can see this twining, winding, we've got a vine there, they're beans, that's what this is, growing up the corn stalk. So the corn provides support. Both of them provide food. The beans are a nitrogen fixer, so they help feed the soil, feed the plants growing around it. And then we have squash, and that is going around here. You can see the squash blossoms, and that acts as a ground cover and a mulch. It keeps the weeds down because it spreads out and covers all the soil. And so those three things, it's really interesting if you prepare those three things together in a dish. I'm sure most of you have heard of succotash. So beans and corn and squash together make succotash. Nutritionally, they complement each other to make a perfect protein. And the way they grow together, they complement each other to make a perfect little system. So this is the Three Sisters garden this year. And then next to it, we've got a tomato plant in here. Not sure what type we have this year, but there's a tomato. And then we have some open space. So we've got room for some other things to be planted around this tomato. So maybe next time we look at the garden, there'll be something else growing there. But yeah, it looks like the squash is doing well. It's spreading all over. It's doing its job. It's covering the ground, keeping the moisture in, keeping the weeds down. That corn is definitely supporting the beans. So this is all working together very nicely. Here's the bench I mentioned in this arbor that's supporting more grapevines. So I just want to show you the view. This is how we'll end the video. A great spot to sit. This is a perfect sit spot to be able to look up and enjoy all of the gardens, all of the wildlife. There's our bug house over there supporting our pollinators.